Hello, friend, welcome back to my channel. God bless you. For the news update, please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon. We welcomed them into our homes for more than 20 years. On television, the Roloffs were a family that revolutionized what it meant to be a family. We observed their growth. We saw them fall in love. We saw them engage in combat. And on 100 acres of Oregonian land, we saw them become an empire. It was more than simply a reality show, Little People, Big World. It was a television dynasty, a reassuring constancy for many. After a season of stress, heartache, and tearful farewells, it abruptly ended in the spring of 2024. According to Amy Roloff, the train appeared to have finally arrived at the station. The final kids on the show, Zach and Tori Roloff, packed their things and announced they were done. Matt Roloff shared mysterious posts about fresh starts. TLC's official statement is quiet. One of the longest-running reality series ever came to a silent, unceremoniously abrupt conclusion. According to the official narrative, which the viewers have been encouraged to think, the show just ended, the family outgrew the cameras, and it was a logical conclusion. What if I told you, however, that the official narrative is false? Would you believe me if I told you that Little People, Big World's demise wasn't entirely natural? Could it have been engineered? What if a covert civil war, a struggle for wealth and power that has so far remained hidden in the shadows, broke the dynasty apart from the inside out instead of simply fading away? We're not discussing the previous conflict between Amy and Matt. We haven't even discussed Matt and Zach's terrible farm feud. We're discussing a fresh, devastating bombshell. A demand so bold that it purportedly set husbands against wives, sons against stepfathers, and family members against each other. Chris Marek, the most improbable of sources, made a demand. A startling new picture is starting to emerge from rumors and whispers from those who are supposedly close to the production. An image depicts discussions for a possible 2026 season that have halted. At the heart of it all was a purported desire for a higher compensation from Chris Marek himself. Compared to the Roloff children, a power play that might have been the last straw for the well-known program. This is the tale of the covert cancellation of a massive reality TV network. More than that, though, this could be the true cause. Do me a tremendous favor before we delve into the backroom deals, the web of intrigue, and what our sources are referring to as the Great Roloff Salary War. You won't find a deeper dig like this anywhere else. If you think there's more to this tale than first meets the eye, demonstrate it. Until the button turns blue, obliterate it. Most importantly, enable all notifications by clicking subscribe to LPBW Update. As we piece together the truth piece by piece, you won't want to miss a moment of our investigation. We must first comprehend the cover-up in order to comprehend the conspiracy. It was a story of calm finality that was told to the public. Let's look at the evidence they requested. Tori and Zach Roloff, Exhibit A. Their symbol of emotion. Felt sincere when taken off the show. They had had enough of the family drama, especially the acrimonious feud with Matt over the land. With no more Roloff kids on the show, what was left, their departure seemed like a natural conclusion. Amy Roloff's own words, Exhibit B. A moving metaphor that is a little unclear. It alludes to a soft ending and winding down. Without ever revealing the conclusion, it sets the stage for it. It's the ideal PR strategy. It is kind, non-committal, and stays away from the derogatory headlines of a complete cancellation. Exhibit C. The conduct of Matt Roloff. He completely turned his attention to social media, sharing in-depth updates about his life after the show, the farm's future, and the new house he and Karen had built. He was behaving as though he was an adult. It all seems to add up on the surface. A clean, well-organized bundle. The parents were going on, and the children had departed. The tale was finished. The case is over. Correct. False. Because the natural end theory is flawed if you examine it more closely. Enormous, wide-open holes. First, the cash. Small individuals. Big World continued to be a TLC ratings triumph. The show was a flagship. Profitable, long-running properties are not just let go by networks without a big, well-publicized goodbye season. Consider it. 4 months, we would have been exposed to advertisements. The conclusion of an era, the last season. Bid farewell to the Roloffs. We received nothing, even though TLC would have exploited that finale to get every last rating point. Radio silence. Television doesn't operate like that. That's how things get abruptly shut off. The second is the uncertainty. What made the actors so cynical? Why not just say it if everyone agreed that the program was over? Why are there train metaphors? The mysterious pose. Why? This seems less like a consensual agreement and more like a group of people who are unwilling to reveal the whole truth about a sudden dramatic implosion because they are bound by non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs. Thirdly, there are rumors of fresh negotiations, which is the most crucial component of the puzzle. According to sources, as recently as late 2023, TLC was actually looking into a new version of the show, one that would concentrate on the two main couples, Amy and Chris and Matt and Karen, instead of the deceased children. Allegedly, this updated LPBW was being considered. What, then, killed the new show that was being discussed? What transpired in those negotiation rooms was so disastrous that it destroyed the new program and eliminated any possibility of a fitting send-off for the previous one. That's where our story really starts, my friends. Additionally, the name in the middle. Chris Marek is the firestorm. You must comprehend Chris Marek's development on the show in order to comprehend the purported need. He debuted in 2016 as Amy Roloff's new boyfriend, a successful real estate agent, an outsider, and a man of average height. He was a plow, a supporting character. He was pleasant, soft-spoken, and seemed happy to remain in the background, helping Amy adjust to her new life after the divorce. That was his job for years. He was the source of serenity, the man who gave Amy a voice and a sense of independence. He gained the admirers' trust by being the dependable, stable companion Amy deserved. However, as the years passed, something changed. Chris had evolved from a supporting role. He became as a major character in Amy's life and, consequently, on the show. For TLC, his wedding to Amy was a significant multi-EP episode event. His views on the farm, his relationships with Matt, and his function as a grandfather figure to the children all turned into story points. His usage of screens grew significantly in LPBW's post-divorce, post-farm sale environment. Chris was more than just Amy's spouse. He was one of the show's 4 primary pillars. And Chris knew it, based on our unverified insider information. He was aware of his worth. Here's what those connected to the production are telling us. When the subject of pay came up during the preliminary discussions for a new season in 2026, one that would primarily concentrate on the adult couples, former outsider Chris more reportedly made a amazing move. According to the theory, he and his representatives sought a compensation package that would make him a top-tier show star. It was more than a raise, though. According to reports, the desire had to do with status. At the very least, he wanted a salary that matched what Zach and the other Roloff kids had been making. Rumor has it that he might have even requested more. Let's examine the reasons for this explosiveness. The program was known as Little People, Big World for 25 seasons. The whole idea was constructed about the Roloff family, their unusual lives, and their dwarfism. The legacy was the kids, Zach, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob. Despite never being made public, their pay reflected their position as original core cast members. For want of a better term, they were Roloff royalty. For Chris Marek, a man of average height who joined the family less than 10 years ago, to insist on receiving compensation that matches or exceeds that tradition. This would be considered the pinnacle of power play in the Roloff's universe. It's not merely a negotiating strategy. It's a declaration. The entire family structure is under threat. It would convey an uncomplicated and harsh message. The children are no longer there. The future is me. They and their memory are not as important to the performance as I am. What would happen with the rest of the family, do you think? This one purported demand has the capacity to start a chain reaction. And there's reason to think it did. Such a demand is not made in a vacuum. Shock waves are produced. Let's examine the anticipated fallout on an individual basis. According to the rumors, this is the internal family conflict. First, let's talk about Zach and Tori. Zach's entire existence had revolved around the show, and they had recently made the agonizing decision to leave. Their main driving force was Matt's severe injury caused by the farm sale. They were driven out of their own family legacy and felt disrespected and undervalued. Now picture them receiving a call. Suppose they learn that their mother's husband, a man who has just been in their lives for a little portion of the duration of the show, is requesting a higher salary than Zach, the lone youngster still on the show, was receiving. It would be a severe, heartbreaking slap across the face. It would confirm all of their anxieties over their position within the family. They lose their birthright, the farm, first. Their own stepfather is now contesting their financial and social worth on the show they helped create. This has nothing to do with financial jealousy. Respect is at issue. It would seem to Zach like the last straw in his distaste for the show and possibly the family unit as a whole. On two levels, it is a betrayal. From his own mother's house and from a production he dedicated his life to. After then, there would be no turning back. There is very little possibility that Zach and Tori will ever appear as guests or take part in a holiday special. It would probably dissolve forever as a result. They would just refuse to fight, and the conflict would be finished for them. They would clean their hands of the entire situation. Let's now discuss Jeremy Roloff and his wife Audrey, the neglected son. They famously quit the show years ago, saying they wanted to focus on their own endeavors and shield their family from what they perceived to be a more unchristian and poisonous atmosphere. They have been accused for years by some fans for being judgmental or pious. However, this news, the demand for Jeremy and Audrey's salaries from Chris Merrick, would be the final straw. They left. Seeing the writing on the wall, they turned away from the fame and the money. They noticed that the family firm was starting to focus more on business than on family. The ultimate example is a stepfather who is supposedly requesting to be paid more than the biological children. Everything they say they're fleeing. You can just hear them saying, "See, we told you so." This isn't just family anymore. It's a corporate entity where your value is determined by negotiating power and screen time, not by blood. Additionally, Jeremy's departure and the Chris Mark situation would demonstrate to them and their followers that they made the right decision, causing a chasm of distance rather than anger. They are on their own arc, and this news would simply be proof that the flood was real. This is where it gets really interesting. How would the patriarch, the king of the Roloffs, build his own separate legacy? He is the only Roloff son who is truly independent, who doesn't need Matt's farm or TLC's paycheck. Your initial reaction may be indignation. How dare this man question the worth of my children? However, you must keep in mind that Matt Roloff is a cunning, unflappable businessman who would view this situation from the perspective of a producer rather than a father. Let's examine his calculating, icy approach. On the one hand, you have his son Zach, who has publicly left the show, is openly at odds with him, and represents the previous iteration of LPW, which is, to be honest, declining. Is it possible that Matt, the businessman, would secretly agree with Chris's assessment of his own value? On the other hand, you have Chris Merrick. Chris is trustworthy, he shows up, he's willing to film, he's part of a stable on-screen couple with Amy, and he provides a crucial link to the normalized world, which has always been part of the show's appeal. From a purely logistical standpoint for a future show focused on the adults, Chris is a more valuable asset than Zach. Matt is in a terrible position. Does he defend the honor of the son he is fighting with, or does he make a practical business decision to support the man who could be key to his and Karen's future on television? Any decision he makes creates more conflict. Siding with Chris would permanently alienate him from his kids, and siding with his kids against Chris would create a huge rift with Amy and possibly ruin the new show. In any case, Matt would be stuck. And now, we reach the core of the drama. Amy Roloff, the emotional center. Just think of the suffering she endured for years as she fought for her own voice and independence from Matt before finding a partner in Chris who loved her, supported her, and gave her a new lease on life. He is her future and her rock, but her children, especially Zach, are her legacy and her blood, and she has a bond with them. Treasured and shielded during all the years of conflict with Matt, but now her rock and her legacy are at war, and the man she loves is essentially saying that he is worth more than the son she had. This is an impossible conflict. Who does she support? Does she stand by her husband? If she does, she runs the risk of being perceived by her children as a traitor, as she would be supporting the new money against the old blood, and they would accuse her of choosing her new life over them, which could harm her relationship with her. Does she support her children? If she tells Chris, "You are wrong to ask for this, you are disrespecting my son," she is causing a huge rift in her own marriage. She is telling her husband that he is not as valuable as her family's legacy, which could be a devastating blow to a man like Chris, who is proud and successful in his own right. Every path is a losing one. Without a doubt, this alleged demand would have sparked the most intense, painful. This isn't just a salary negotiation, it's a battle for the soul of the Roloff family, and Chris Mark may have set off the fuse, whether on purpose or not. The family is in disarray. But what about the network? Why would TLC even allow it to reach this stage? The tension we saw on screen in the final season may have been about more than just the farm. It could have been the early tremors of this massive earthquake occurring behind closed doors. Why don't they simply reply, "No way," and end Chris Marks' demand right away? The Roloff kids are the stars. You have to take away all emotion in order to comprehend their position. Television networks are corporations, not families, and their sole objective is to make money and get viewers. From TLC's point of view, the Little People Big World brand as it was damaged goods. The main conflict that propelled it for 10 years was the breakup of Matt and Amy's marriage. The second-generation story, When they sat down at the negotiating table, they were looking for a new show, a phoenix to rise from the ashes. And what would that new show look like? It would be LPBW, The Golden Years, a show that focused on two couples in their 50s and 60s navigating life, love, retirement, and grandparenting. Zach and Jeremy were gone, and the farm succession plot, which was supposed to be the next 5 years of television, had collapsed in the most dramatic way possible. Is Chris more a supporting character in that version of the show? No, he is one of the 4 leads, and his viewpoint is equally as significant as Amy's. His relationship with Matt is a major source of potential drama and comedy, so in that context, his demand to be paid as a lead actor actually makes a twisted kind of sense from a purely business standpoint. TLC would be in a difficult situation because, on the one hand, giving in to his demand would mean dealing with a disastrous family fallout, which could prevent filming, but on the other hand, refusing. The network was probably in a checkmate situation. The family was too broken to continue the old show, and the financial demands and internal politics were too toxic to start a new one. What do you do when your multi-million-dollar asset has become this radioactive? You don't cancel it. You don't give it a farewell season. He might mean Chris walks. And if Chris walks, does Amy walk with him? If Amy is out, the entire concept for the new show collapses. There is no show with just Matt and Karen. The cleanest, quietest way to deal with an unsolvable mess is to just walk away, let it die quietly, and hope that the fans just assume it was a natural death. Once you understand the theory, you begin to see the clues everywhere. Let's go back and examine the previous seasons using this new perspective. Recall all those scenes where Chris, the real estate agent, would offer his professional but unsolicited opinion on the value of the farm and Matt's building projects. At the time, we thought it was a fun dynamic. Remember the subtle but persistent awkwardness between Chris and Zach in the later seasons? We chalked it up to the general family tension around the farm, but what if it was the start of this power struggle? What if Zach felt Chris was overstepping, not just as Amy's husband but as a fellow businessman and equal at the table. The two patriarchs making small talk. A stepfather, but as a character on the show? What if he noticed Chris assisting Matt in production and felt his own job was in jeopardy? And let's revisit the most important moment. Zach was the reason the farm deal didn't work out. Matt's official explanation was that Zach wasn't prepared and they couldn't agree on a price. But what if there was another unspoken factor? What if Matt, already seeing the writing on the wall, realized that the show's future might lie with the adults, not the children? It's a terrifying idea that the heartbreak of the farm sale wasn't just a family argument, but a calculated move in a much larger chess game for the future of the Little People Big World television franchise. Selling the farm to Zach would have solidified the old version of the show, a version Matt was already planning to move on from. By refusing Zach the farm, was Matt possibly unconsciously setting the stage for a new show, one in which Chris Marek would play a much larger role? When the evidence is put together, it presents a compelling and tragic picture of a family dynasty that survived divorce, internal strife, and other setbacks. The tension, the departure, the stalled negotiations, and the sudden silence all point to a single explosive event, a demand that the family and the network simply could not survive. So, was Little People Big World quietly cancelled because the family simply grew apart, or was that just the cover story for a much darker, more complicated truth? It suggests that Chris Moore, the man who came in as Amy's savior, may have unintentionally become the catalyst for the show's final collapse. Perhaps not out of malice, but rather out of a business-like understanding of his own value in a changing landscape, he saw himself as a key player in the show's future and demanded to be paid like one, but in doing so, he failed to understand one thing. And public scrutiny for 2 decades only to be allegedly brought down by a battle over money and status sparked by its newest member. His demand, as reasonable as it might have been in a Hollywood boardroom, was a declaration of war in the Roloff's world, a war that no one could win, and the show is gone. The family is broken, possibly irreparably, and we, the viewers, are left with nothing but questions and the lingering possibility that the feel-good family show we loved was ultimately consumed by the very things it was never supposed to be. The Roloffs are not a normal company. They are a family where blood, history, and legacy mean everything. What do you guys think? Was Chris Marek a shrewd negotiator who understood his worth? Or was his alleged demand the ultimate act of disrespect that brought the whole house of cards crashing down? The real big world turned out to be a much more brutal place than we ever imagined. It's unclear whether this theory is just wild speculation or if we've discovered the uncomfortable truth that TLC and the Roloffs don't want you to know.